So I put the new bedding and the food scraps in this VermiBag Tote just about an hour ago, I suppose. And it's kind of interesting. I have to take a peek at it. I want to show you guys what's going on. It's pretty cool. So this is what it looks like. The worms are just migrating in mass right down the hill, you know, down the big slope on both sides, and going over into those baited areas. They're coming right to the surface on the top right here on this mound, and they're going right on down. I'm kind of surprised at how quick they did this. You said it's been less than just about an hour and a half maybe. So pretty interesting. I mean, they really migrated over to that stuff really quickly. So I'll take a peek at it in the morning, and if it's any different, I'll videotape a little bit of it then. Okay, it's been overnight. I just want to peek in this thing first thing in the morning and see what it looks like after a full night. You know, they're really working their way over into the sides for sure. And when you see worms on the center here, but boy, these sides are just loaded already. Pretty interesting. They move over pretty doggone fast. Well, I'll take a look at it each day for the next week and just see how it goes each day. Okay, so it's been 24 hours since I put everything into this VermiBag Tote to see how they migrate. Let's see what it looks like now. Boy, those side pieces are teeming with worms. They just touch anywhere. Yeah, there's a lot of worms in there. They're definitely working their way over pretty fast. So it seems like it's working. So we'll take a look at it now in a couple days. I'd mentioned on the previous video when I first started harvesting the tote is that I was kind of supercharging my bedding basically by adding some worm chow I make and also some ground up black-eyed peas. I just want to quickly show you, I have a little bit more bedding here, and that migration process is really working well. So I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more bedding. And I want to do the same thing. I want to add a little bit of a, per se, supercharge it a little bit. So what I do is, I have some old black-eyed peas that are here that are way past, I mean, I don't know if they ever expire, but these are really old. All I do is take about half a cup at the most, I suppose, of those. Put them in a little spice grinder. Grind them up real good so they're in a powder. Real fine powder like that there. And I'm just dumping these. I'm just going to dump that in my bedding there. Then I'm going to grab, this is just a bird seed, outdoor mixture of bird seed. Go ahead and do the same thing with that. I'm just going to grab about 3/4 of a cup of it. Throw it in here if it'll fit. Do the same thing. Let's ground into a pretty nice powder. Do the same thing. I'm just going to go ahead and add that into my. So now I have this inside the bedding. Mix the stuff up a little bit. And that gives them some additional nutrients. And they really like that worm chow and stuff. And also the ground up peas. Now I'm going to go ahead and take some more of this bedding. And I'm going to add a little bit more to the tote. And see if I can accelerate this migration. No worms right on the surface right now. I've moved it around a little bit, so I would kind of suspect that the worms that are down underneath these edges have probably gone back under. But let's go ahead and dig down along the sides and just see how many worms are over in these side sections now. pull a handful of those out and just... Now this was the cucumber I threw in there yesterday. It's basically almost all gone in one day. Or actually a day and a half, I guess it would be. Now I got some material down deep here. Yeah. The worms are definitely thick in these edges. I'm going to check this other side and see just briefly kind of what it looks like underneath. What kind of worm action I have under there. I mean, definitely teeming with worms down in there. This other side. Amazingly, again, that food is, there's not an awful lot of food showing up down there. And this is a ton of worms, so I mean, they're going to eat a lot of stuff. Everything that I put in there is pretty much gone. So I'm going to go ahead and feed up both sides here. I have some melon and some beans that I'm going to put in there. But before I do that, I want to go ahead and agitate the center section a little bit here. Just dig down into it. If I find any scraps, I'll throw them off to the sides. I'm also, you know, any worms I happen to see, if they're easily accessible, I'll probably throw them off to the side just to help things along. But my main purpose of this is to, you know, agitate and aerate this center section. But it'll also give us an idea of just how many worms, you know, have migrated and how many are still left. Right off the bat, there's a chunk of an avocado skin, so I want to go ahead and throw that on the side. There's a couple worms there. I mean, I'm definitely seeing worms in here. This has only been 4 days, so of course I'm going to see some worms. But, you know, if I see them right here, I'm going to go ahead and just throw them on the side. There's no big deal to kind of help things along. But realistically, I'm not seeing an awful lot of worms. The ones that are in here are real small. There must have been a lot of cocoons in this material when I put it in here, because, I mean, there are tons and tons of juvenile worms. Most of these are red wigglers, it looks like. I haven't seen a couple of Euros. I'm not sure if I've seen any African night crawlers or not yet. Vegan. One little worm there, whoops, I lost him. There he is. But you know, really there's not an awful lot of worms here in the center section. I'm going to go all the way to the bottom where it's a little bit more compact and a little bit moister down at the very bottom. There's definitely a few more there. There's a few worms here. But that's that bottom section. I want to make sure I aerate that a little bit more, because the worms definitely will concentrate a lot more in the denser material. So the bottom of this bag where this weight is pushing down versus the top where it's a lot more, the material is a lot looser. So on the bottom, pull that material back up to the top here. Yeah, I'm pretty happy. There are worms, but for 4 days, I think this is doing actually amazingly well for the number of worms that were in here. And there again, I got right at the very bottom. You know, the bottom 1 inch of this system probably, you know, I see when I pull it up there, there's a good chunk of worms right there at the bottom hanging out. So probably a good thing to bring them up to the top here, and that'll give them a chance to migrate down here and go over into the sides. You know, a few worms here and there. But not bad. I mean, I'm actually pretty happy. I mean, nothing that I can't bait out later on. I give it another, a week. I don't think I'm going to be going 3 weeks by any means. I mean, I'm at 4 days right now, so I can see over the next week for sure, I think I'll be ready to kind of pull this out, and I'll put this material here into some container. I haven't decided yet. I may put it into a vermi bucket and then put a little bait container in it to try and get any of the, the stragglers. You're never going to get 100%. I mean, if you left this thing for 6 months, you're still going to have somebody hanging out in here for some reason. But just agitating, aerating this center section, pulling any food scraps that you find. Here's another little piece of an avocado skin. Pulling everything off to the side into the areas we want the worms to go. And if you see an occasional worm, if you can pull them over there right now, it's just going to speed things along. But yeah, I'm real happy. I think this is working really well. A little more paper. Okay, that's probably good enough. Let's mound this section back up here. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and make a small indentation here along the side because I have a big melon section that I want to put on both sides, and also some beans. And again, I'm going to concentrate these feedings along these sides to try and make sure the worms make it through the migration barrier and commit to getting into these areas. And again, these side areas are much more, a lot more moisture in here than there are in the center for sure. I mean, I watered it down that one time, but I'm also adding pretty high moisture content food into it, including what I'm going to be adding today. Now, I have some frozen beans that I'm going to add in here. So I'll lay a few of these on here on both sides. And then on top of those, I'm going to go ahead and add a melon, which they're going to love. And a lot of moisture in this melon, of course. Okay, so I have one chunk of a melon. I'll stick it face down on that side. And I have another chunk of this melon, and I'll put it over on this side. And then to top it off, I'm going to add just a little bit more of that bedding that I mixed up yesterday. And again, I kind of supercharged this bedding by adding some of my worm chow into it. I'm actually going to add a little bit underneath. What really helps the worms go into these areas faster is if you add, a layer of bedding and stuff all the way around. You don't want a big pile of food. You want bedding mixed within the food. And I've always done that. I've always kind of agitated these areas normally to kind of make sure there's bedding in contact with the food as you put it in here. And that way the worms seem to get into these areas a lot faster. If it's just one big pile of food, for some reason they wait a little bit longer before they go into it. So the barrier fence is right along here and right along here. We'll just try and keep everything like that. That's it. Like I said, I'm actually really impressed. I think it's done really well. The center section, there's not an awful lot of worms in it. And there are literally a ton of worms on both of these sides right now. With that additional food I just added, and along with the bedding, I give melons. It's real moist, so the sides are much moister than the center section. And those worms are really migrating over there. The only area I've seen worms, like I said, in here is at the very bottom of this section. So when I agitated it and aerated this thing, the very, very bottom of this, because this is about 8 inches deep right here, 9 inches. So there's a lot of weight at the very bottom, so it's compacting the bottom section pretty good. And that seems like where the worms are kind of hanging out right now, the ones that aren't migrating over. But for 4 days, and it's not even quite 4 days yet, this evening it'll be 4 days, I'm real impressed with, really impressed with how the system's doing. So I'm going to close this up, and I may come back in a couple hours just out of curiosity's sake and look at the sides here, because For some reason, they really seem to go ballistic over this bedding. Well, that's it. This is Tom from VermiBag. Until next week, ciao.